the whole way through because we just don't do it like normal people. Hi, Gary.
Do we not? That's very interesting. I like the use of the royal we.
There's only a royal we. There's never a peasant we.
No,
you never feel like, all we fellow peasants, it's always royal we.
Maybe if you're like, we, the peasants, are super pissed off, you keep pushing buttons when you hired us peasants to do it.
You're not a peasant, you're a consigliere. You're
That's
even better.
Well. Fair.
It's my mom's birthday today too. Happy birthday, Diane Brogan.
That's so exciting. Is she here today or is she like doing something else?
Well, Dad said he had to jump through hoops, so maybe my mom's swimming. Maybe she's in the channel or something like that. I
did say that. Well, it's nice for him to come. We have a doctor on the show today.
There's a doctor in the house.
Dr. Embriette Hyde. And we have Marsha Collier, eBay expert, author of, I want to say 47 books. We'll get confirmation on that later.
All the books.
Makes you look like a slacker.
Yeah. I mean, I was like pretty happy that I re-released one whole book. So, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a different show than yesterday. Yesterday we had YouTube stars. Today we have a poop doctor and an e-commerce wizard.
Keep telling her that she's a reason.
Backpack show.
She's a researcher that studies.
I know she's a researcher and a writer.
So a big part of that is analyzing poop, but it's not all there is.
Not just the gut biome too. There's all the biomes.
There's many biomes.
That's right. And we're going to talk about at least 2 biomes today.
That will be 2 more biomes than we've ever discussed on the show before. So
completely true. All right, lay it out, poop doctor. Hi, Embriette Hyde. How are you?
I am great. How are you guys doing?
Great. Scientist and researcher, Embriette Hyde. Thank you for joining us. Now, you knew you wanted to get your PhD when you were in elementary school. Is that right?
Well, yeah, in a way. So I was a very confused child when it came to yawns. I noticed, as any astute child would, that yawns seemed to be contagious. And so one day I finally said, well, the only way that I know in my 8-year-old mind to solve this dilemma of why yawns are contagious is to get my PhD. That's what all the smart people do. So that's the solution. And I marched up to my mother and I said, Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to get my PhD and find out why yawns are contagious.
So did you find out?
Yes, but I didn't need a PhD for that.
You need to Google?
No. Yeah, there is research now that suggests why yawns are contagious and why they, I yawn, you yawn, we all yawn.
Now I need the answer, Embriette. I don't think I can continue until I get it.
Well, see, it has something to do with pathways in your brain, and there's some adaptation response that essentially if one person yawns, the body believes that it should also yawn to be on the same. I don't remember all the details.
Like peer pressure?
Yeah, it's like brain peer pressure.
But it's a mimicry neuron type response kind of a thing, isn't it? That's what I seem to recall.
Yeah.
We have neurons that when we see someone yawn, they yawn. That's why the Sullivan nod works in retail. When Embriette says, I think I'll have a vodka tonic, and I go, oh, like a Tito's, and that nod works.
Yeah. And now a fun fact about dogs, I learned that yawning for them is actually a way to make sure that everything is okay in the world. So if your dog is stressed out, yawn at it. And if it yawns back, he's telling you, oh, I got you. Okay, I know I can relax. And if your dog yawns at you, he's probably stressed out. So if you yawn back, then he'll calm down. Weird. I've tried it.
Sugar nodding now. Does anybody yawning? I hope not during our show. That would be depressing.
Everybody's yawning. It's great.
That doesn't work as well. So you aptly corrected me that you're not just sitting around with, I don't know, poop in a jar and looking at it and shaking it and stuff. You actually write and do science. And what we were talking about was the fact that what you do is it's pretty important, which is such a dumb sentence. What you do is very important. Otherwise, why would we have you on the show? But scientists come up with what they come up with, and then they almost always have to partner with someone to put that into a document of some kind and research materials and all that. And what you're saying is it's a pretty dangerous world right now because of the way that's being done. Can you talk just a minute about that?
Yeah, I actually think the current situation with COVID is a really good example of this issue, but the issue has been around forever. And the problem is that scientists, when we get our training, we're not taught how to talk about science in like English or to people who speak English. We're just taught to talk about science with other scientists. And so there's jargon, And there's all these little nuances that everybody who does science understands, but we really do a disservice to the general public when we do that, and to ourselves, because the funding for science, much of it comes from the government. A lot of government policy is dictated by the votes of you and me and everybody else. And so if we give people unrealistic expectations about science, then they begin not to trust us, and the voting changes, we lose funding, and it's just this horrible spiral. People also can like just get really crazy information from places based on preliminary studies that some journalist or editor decided would be a great idea to have like a clickbait type title, but no truth or substance in it. And they can really hurt themselves, make themselves sick, or just do something really dumb. And it's a big problem. So that's one of the issues that I was trying to tackle when I decided to dedicate most of my time to writing about science instead of doing, do I mean like Facebook science? Yes, that's one very good example.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say is, some of the world knows about places like PubMed, and I imagine that there's other kind of search platforms like that for some of the science you do, as well as PubMed. But there's a whole lot of Facebook scientists out there now.
Yeah, and even PubMed isn't the greatest resource, because that's where you find all of the peer-reviewed papers, and so they're very sciencey. And even me as a PhD researcher who is trained how to read scientific papers, if it's outside of my expertise area, sometimes even I have a hard time understanding what in the world these people are talking about. And so to expect, somebody from the general public to go in there and read it and be like, well, now my science questions are answered, is unrealistic. But there are a lot of good publications out there that do a great job of condensing it down and making it readable by other people, while also being responsible about the reporting.
I just saw you tweet, though, that sometimes peer review scientists aren't doing their jobs, that they actually succumb to pressure when the scientists will be like, I don't like that you didn't like my thing.
Yeah, it's so true. There are a lot of issues with the peer review process as well, and you could probably have a whole separate show on that.
Like, that's not how that's supposed to work. We're relying on them to kick it back and say this isn't good enough. And now they're like, well, okay. To put it like
so
that.
when people say in their argument, when you look at the science, what they kind of mean is when you read, the Mother Jones article, which is an abstract of the abstract of the science. Is that accurate to say? And you mentioned, well, PubMed's not that great because, people can go into PubMed and they can abstract it in whatever way they want and say, see, I told you sugar was good to eat. So how do you help people understand that? And happy birthday, Diane Brogan, who just showed up.
Yeah, there's some resources out there, but essentially what we really need to be doing is teaching people the red flags and sort of things to look out for when they're reading anything, whether it's actually a scientific article or whether it's a journalistic popular media article about a scientific article. And this kind of harkens back to the peer review issue, but one of the most powerful things you can do is just look and see where the funding comes from. If it's an article about the benefits of stevia as opposed to other artificial sweeteners, and then come to find out it's funded by one of the biggest stevia producers, you might want to be a little skeptical of that. Did they doctor their data? Animal studies are also very powerful tools for science, but one of the issues that we fall into a lot is drawing conclusions too quickly and extrapolating to humans based on results that we have found in animals. And while we're closely related, the biology is different in many important ways. And that's actually the reason why most drugs fail in clinical trials. It's not that scientists are just picking random drug targets out of thin air and testing them to find the one that works. The reason they're testing them is because they actually worked in an animal model. And so they think it's a good option now to test in humans. And the vast majority of the time they fail. And so it really hurts my soul when I see people reading an article and writing an article about a scientific article where it was an animal model, even if the results were exciting. What often happens is the excitement is heightened to a level where people now think that they can go and apply this to their own lives and have the same results. And, best case scenario, nothing happens, but now they don't trust science. Worst case scenario, they actually make themselves sick or hurt themselves. And we definitely don't want that in any situation.
In the so I'm gonna bring it back to poop doctor because I have to. The
Of course.
So there's like, for instance, I had read, and I forget where, that there's a process that if you want to kind of do a quick instant like gut biomectomy, you could basically eat someone's super healthy gut biome poop, and suddenly your gut biome will sort of, pick that up and say that's
You're supposed
delicious.
to eat it, or are you supposed to like pack it in there?
I don't know. We're gonna find that out. But let me ask this question. So I started
neither option sounds good, by the way.
I started with, eat some really healthy poop and you're gonna feel better. But let's pretend that's what I think I saw. What do you do to tell the average Steve or Diane Rogan, like, here's how you go and refute that information or find out if you think that's even accurate? Like, what's your like process to say, let's see if that's what really was said?
One of the things that I really like to bring up to people is, despite the fact that we are almost 100% identical genetically, you can look at people and tell that they're different. Now, our genes, like our human genes, are outnumbered by the bacterial genes in our body 360 to 1. And we can be more different microbially than we are genetically from one another. So it could be true that a person's who is healthy, their microbiome works for them. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you. There are types of bacteria that are called opportunistic pathogens. What this means is that under normal situation, they don't hurt anybody. But if put into the right person, or should I say the wrong person, they could do great harm. And you would never take a blood transfusion without testing the blood. But what people who are jumping on is actually called a fecal transplant. And it's exactly
so pack it in, not eat it.
So people who are jumping on the fecal transplant bandwagon are forgetting that, and they're throwing all caution to the wind. And my question would be, why would you want to do a fecal transplant without testing it and knowing exactly what's in there? If you wouldn't do that with a blood test, for very good reason. You don't want to get HIV, you don't want to get hepatitis or some of these other bloodborne pathogens. So it's the same thing. And the other thing is, we have to look at what situations this has been tested under. Fecal transplant is actually very, very effective for people with an infection called C. diff or Clostridium difficile. And we know why that works because we've done the science to understand it. But just because it helps in that one situation doesn't mean it's going to help in every situation, because all diseases are different. Their causes are different. Even different people get different symptoms because biologically we're just different from each other. And so those are usually the things that I try to remind people of. Mostly it's just common sense. Like, you don't even have to get into the science of it. Just ask them the question, well, would you get a blood transfusion without testing? No. Okay, why would you do that with this? But then if they want it and they're open to it, you can go a little bit more into the science of things and just, it works here and this is why we understand it. But different diseases are different, and there's no saying whether it would work in those other situations. And if you're not doing it under a highly controlled, situation, you could do real harm. Actually,
but don't try this at home, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I sound so morbid. My favorite, I don't mean this as my favorite example because it's awesome and I like it, but it goes to exactly what I'm talking about. There was somebody who gave themselves a fecal transplant to try to heal some gut issues they were having. And they actually gave themselves C. diff.
Oh, no.
And it's like,
people who don't know, that's a really bad thing. You don't want it. It goes around nursing homes and other, environments like that. And you really don't want C. diff.
And, the person that individual got the fecal transplant from didn't know that they carried this organism in their body because they were healthy and their immune system was okay. And so there were no symptoms. And if you look at me, I look healthy. You would, maybe feel comfortable taking a poop transplant from
still
me.
No, thank you, though. I'm going to RSVP no to that.
Well, there is the ick factor, and a lot of researchers are now trying to figure out how to do this in pill form, kind of like a probiotic. Like, is there just a minimum number of species that will do it so that you don't have to take the whole poop and do it that way?
Back up. I feel like we didn't even talk about why somebody would do that. Like, why somebody would consider
because it transfers,
that.
At least ostensibly, it transfers the good stuff in that person's gut biome instantly into your gut biome.
Yes,
It's like
but why do we care about what's in your gut biome?
Oh, well, that's the next question. What makes a gut biome important?
Yeah, we're like way down the poop transplant road. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, friend. Why are we even having this conversation?
We put the cart way before the horse. Humans, like, we don't live in isolation, right? And there are microbes that we can't see that live in and on us. And they're not just along for the ride. I mean, some of them are. But what has happened is that we have this focus on germs and this belief that all microbes are bad. But what the science is bringing us back to, and our ancestors kind of already knew this, they just didn't understand scientifically why, is that most microbes are either harmful or actually good for us. And so beans, the musical fruit, the more you eat, the more you toot. That happens because of microbes. And so our cells actually can't break down insoluble fibers that we intake with fibrous foods such as vegetables and beans and so on and so forth. Turns out that that's actually a really great food source for them. And they just break it down, they metabolize it, they do their own bacterial version of poop. Something called short chain fatty acids that result from this breakdown of fiber.
This is like poopception.
Yeah, so we're actually way more full of shit than you thought.
I don't know, a lot of us are in marketing here, Embriette. Yeah. So I don't know.
But these short chain fatty acids actually are really important for keeping our intestinal cells healthy. And so it's like you feed yourself, you feed your microbes, or you feed your microbes, you feed yourself. There are certain vitamins that our human cells cannot produce that are produced by microbes in their metabolic actions, and for the occasional bad guy that comes in. And this is why the fecal transplant, this is what Chris was getting at, they actually fight off the bad ones because it's kind of like territory wars. They don't see it coming in and think, oh my God, a bad bacteria is going to kill my human host if I don't kick them out. They just think, oh, a bacteria is coming in, try to steal my food. I'm going to kick them out. And then it just happens to work great for us.
So what does it do for your overall health?
Yeah, it's really important for overall health. The thing is, we're still trying to figure out exactly why and how, but a lot of these, grandma recommendations that we've been given throughout the years now are starting to make sense why they work as we add the microbiome as a factor. But I want to be careful to highlight that it's not just the microbiome. The microbiome is part of the system. And we're like a huge bag of physiology that has a lot of different things that come into play, but it all affects everything else. And so, for example, a lot of people are surprised to find this out. I knew I was, but serotonin, which is awesome. Don't say Kate, that's funny.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to put this whole big thing up for Carol, and then she's going to cover you for a second. It's the Canadian version of the bean song.
That's how we said it in Maine.
Thanks for swinging by.
The Canadian version. But, where was I? I totally got sidetracked.
Marsha Collier backstage was wondering, can't we just eat yogurt? She said her private chat.
That's a really good question. And so here's the thing. When it comes to the microbiome, it's actually really hard to identify what a healthy microbiome is versus a microbiome of a sick person. Because what seems to happen is when we get sick, microbes disappear. And so you lose diversity and people become more similar on that spectrum. Whereas if you're healthy and you have a very diverse microbiome, they can look very different from one another. And so the yogurt thing is plagued by essentially FDA rules and regulations. Poop yogurt, gross. And that's kind of like chocolate mousse, I guess. But what happens is there are some probiotic species that have been very well tested and very well studied in the context of disease. So there are certain probiotics that we know help with irritable bowel syndrome and that we know help with diarrhea that can happen after you take antibiotics. But as a way to maintain health, it's really hard to assess even without understanding what health means. And the issue with probiotic species is that they have an FDA status that's called GRAS. It stands for Generally Recognized as Safe. So anybody who wants to can mix and match a whole bunch of these things together, create a yogurt or some other type of probiotic, and sell it without having to do any scientific studies to show that it does anything at all. It might do something, it might not, but as long as there are no claims made on the label, then you can sell it and make money off of it, which is why there's so many out there. And the other issue is whether or not it's even alive when you eat it. So I had some colleagues up at Stanford, which is, just a little ways north of where I am currently located. And they went to Trader Joe's and collected, I think it was like 12 of the most popular yogurt and yogurt type products out there. And they actually just put them on plates to try to grow bacteria. And only 3 of them grew. So in most of the yogurt, they were dead anyway. And dead organisms don't do anything. So you're essentially just eating. Someone just wrote it, don't they have a lot of sugar? They do. And so you're almost like getting rid of any potential benefit by adding in all the sugar as well. So you have to be really careful with what's out there in terms of probiotics. I eat yogurt because it tastes good, and I eat Greek yogurt. It has a lot of protein, but I always get them plain. I make sure there's no sugar added.
We saw you eat it right before we went on air.
Yeah, I was going to say, we saw that live.
That's right. Yes,
that's a true story, folks.
So I just want to pass out that we have, you can get a whole lot more of Dr. Embriette Hyde, and you have to understand that when fools like us talk to her, we're like, this is like 0.0001% of like the entirety of what she can do in her brain. So you got to go to Dr. Hyde, not Jekyll, to get the full thing. If you can hang out, Embriette, please do. And if you can't, then get the hell out. Very nice to talk to you.
Hey, be nice to her.
I am.
She's helping you with your gut microbiome. My
biome feels 30 times better already.
Just from the talk. Good talk.
Yeah, good talk, Belly. And I have 30 times more gut right now. So my health is great. So we're switching in our very 90-degree segue fashion to the incredible e-commerce and otherwise, insanely prolific author and absolute star of stage and screen, Marsha Collier. How are you?
Fine. How are you? That was also fascinating. I'm just so glad that I can still eat Greek yogurt. I mean, I was just worried there.
Oh, yeah, right. You're waiting for that shoe to drop.
Right. I've always thought I'm doing a good thing. God, thank goodness. Thank you.
Live and learn.
It's amazing how it works out.
Marsha, is it 47 books? Or is it
honestly, I lost count because
like,
there's translations in there and there's stuff. But who would figure I wrote Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for seniors is now on its 3rd edition, and people are actually buying it. And that was just like a one-off book. I just wanted the first one just right. And Chris, your parents reviewed it. Happy birthday, Diane. They reviewed it. It's a fun book. And that just became the side of it. But the thing that I really do, hi, Deb. Hi, everybody. The thing that I really do is I love taking scientific or technology white papers and translating it just like I do with my For Dummies books, but not for dummies, for real people. And I love translating technology.
I'm only a surreal person, so I can't vouch for that because I get a lot of the Dummies books. But the thought I have all the time is that when you write these books, I mean, Dummies books can do so much for somebody, but they also require a super strict format to write. So that's kind of tricky. I wanted you to talk to that just a minute because people, when they look at them, they think one thing, I think, when they're not sort of on the inside, but you've written a bunch at this point. So talk just a minute about the Dummies format, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, the Dummies format is really amazing. It's you must insert a tip here. Let people know more about the subject right here. Use a bulleted list. And if you don't use these things, you get it back from an editor saying, you got to do this. And so the format of the books, it's kind of like having someone on your shoulder reminding you what you need to do. And I like that because it keeps me in line, because otherwise I can go on some crazy tangents and have. I think I did a full chapter on the Kelvin of light bulbs. And that came back saying, no, nobody cares but you.
What?
I did the Kelvin of light bulbs. It's fascinating, the different colors you get from the light bulb. But
I
you
thought
know,
the titles could be shorter. So Facebook and Twitter for senior citizens for dummies. I was like, why
no
not just dumb
citizens.
senior citizens? You're
Yeah,
dumb
because they're not,
seniors.
because we're not dumb. People aren't dumb. People just don't want
The
to
whole
ask
series
for
is for
help.
dummies, Marsha. By definition, people buying it are dummies.
Well,
I am.
aren't we all? Aren't
Yeah,
we
it's-
all? I
But
mean,
I'm saying
really?
save space on the cover. That's valuable real estate.
I mean, if I would get a book from your last guest for dummies, Poop for Dummies, I'd be grateful because I'm totally a dummy when it comes to poop. You look and you go, poop. Okay,
like poop.
so
I think like she was pointing out, like Embriette was saying, it's not necessarily our fault that we're dummies because like mainstream media takes her very well thought out, peer reviewed scientific article and turns it into some clickbaity BuzzFeed headline.
one of my hobbies is skincare, so I'm always reading all the articles, and I'm reading longevity things are happening with earthworms. Really, earthworms? I am not going to live long enough for this to translate from earthworms to people. So you just move along. The internet is full of so much misinformation. And one of my goals is to go ahead and rewrite a lot of these things and translate them so they make sense. And, we were going to talk about your backpack, and I was thinking about things about backpack for not the apocalypse quite yet, but the pandemic. Although it does seem a little bit like the apocalypse, doesn't it? How
Right?
you all
Actually, it
doing
seems a
at
lot
home?
like the apocalypse, actually.
Right? How often don't you earthworms in skincare? Yeah, who knew? They have these little skins. But I mean, how much have you guys left the house?
As little as I
Minimally?
humanly can.
Yeah, minimally. Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I am dying to get outside. So, and they said, well, you could pick up from a restaurant. I don't want to pick up from a restaurant. I want to sit at a table with a white tablecloth. And I want it nice if I'm paying that kind of money. I mean, because, you get the email saying, oh, come to our place. And then we get the other emails from total strangers you follow on Twitter saying, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I know you will benefit from it. Really? Really? You know who I am? Because I probably won't give a damn about your thing. At least this is something I want to tell everybody. If you're going to DM somebody that just followed you, say hello or say hello in open Twitter. Don't send them subscribe to I have a newsletter. I have a this, I have a that. Don't start selling right away. It's just so rude.
My personal favorite is, can I be on your podcast?
Did you just get that one yesterday?
Yesterday.
Crazy.
Wait, but
Yep.
that's so sad because I have a podcast also, which I've had for like forever. And it's pretty successful, and it's on technology, which has nothing to do with eBay or social media or business. It's totally on another planet, which is what I love because I can be on technology. But people are always saying, can I be on your podcast? So what do you do in technology? Oh, I run a big business and I can do this and I could teach everybody. That's not have you even listened? Pat, I think that should be your answer, Carrie. When people want to be on your podcast, just say, have you listened? What do you think you could have to contribute?
My answer is unsubscribe. Just unfollow.
Let me connect you with DIS.
Yeah, hold on one sec.
Well, that's interesting. Deb points out the fact that you're brutally honest on your podcast, which is, it's a very different experience from everyone kind of throwing softballs back and forth. Embriette was talking about the fact that, the most money in science goes to the sexier or the most politically appealing things. Same is true in tech, right? If you say loving things, you'll get more guests. If you poop on somebody, if you poop on somebody, you get less of that. But, I think that, then you lose your trust.
I want to thank Deb because I don't get a lot of validation. On a podcast, unless you have an audience like you guys have, you don't really know what people are thinking, but you know when people are downloading it. And I am brutally honest because there's so much bullshit out. Oh, could I say that?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay. There's so much bullshit out
now.
Doctor said it shit already.
on technology. Do you know there is more written in technology in press releases saying about what is coming out soon? Oh, Apple's going to have this new thing with 3 cameras, and it's really. And then it comes out, and it's kind of it's a phone. It's just a phone. So you hear all these tech writers, and I also do a bit on one of the KFI Nerdorama podcasts. And what I do there is I speak honestly, and I hear the other reporters that are, during the day are played on the air, and they're doing the press release thing. And I'm going, you can't do that to people. I want to give people, as Chris wants to give people, and Carrie too, things that you're interested in, for gosh sake, right? Like, what are you going to do this afternoon, Chris?
Gee, that's a good question. I think I have a tech demo, oddly enough. So I'm watching some video tech demo about a guy who came up with sort of a mechanical Turkish version of making video for big corporations.
Now, the fact that it's Turkish, is that Turkish, the country, or Turkish as in the Turk?
Well, now that I think about it, the term mechanical Turk actually points to the
right,
fact that it's
okay.
not really, it's automated, but not in the way you think it is. And it's sliced
Right.
with a little more human hand on it, which makes it mechanical Turk. But it's oddly like, it's almost like they took the part I wouldn't expect from automation.
Right.
And they took the part I wouldn't expect from humans and like put the horse, underneath the cart instead.
Carrie, what are you doing this afternoon?
Not a damn thing, Marsha. No, actually,
You see, I
my
didn't have a
full-time
damn.
job's for marketing profs, so I have to do grown-up work later.
You got grown up. I don't have any grown up work to do
Oh.
later, so I'm going to list stuff on eBay, because there is nothing more fun than selling your good crap on eBay and having people send you money.
This whole show's about crap.
I mean,
beginning to end.
See, it's perfect. No, I mean, how many gifts do you have in that closet that you have been given by somebody that you don't care about, or they're nice, but it's just not you? Just list them on eBay, because talking a little trending right now in the, I have had that on my website since like 2008, and everybody stole it from me.
There you go.
That's been my tagline. But the thing is, people are bored at home. They are buying on e-commerce like crazy. E-commerce is going to friggin' explode for the holidays, because there's not going to be, even if we could all go out, even if we could, there's no supply chain bringing supplies to stores. The stores aren't ordering merchandise. None of the there's this thing called a merchandise calendar, which I mentioned in one of my books, whereas you plan for the seasons. None of that is happening now. So if you're in e-commerce, and let me tell you, dipping your toe in, and I do not work for eBay, just get this straight. I don't even think they like me much. It's the truth. So they don't talk to me. You have a 10th edition? Oh, that's lovely. Click. They don't care. But my point is, it's a great way for all of us to make extra money. And I know, they charge, and I know there's all this, and there's Mercari, and there's all different other places. Just do it. Just if you
What's
list
that peach candle doing for you in the closet? Nothing.
Right? I have a whole drawer of, for some reason, I went through a period of time, people gave me these Fecal candles. I don't know what you're supposed to do with it. You start a fire in the house. I live in California. The whole place goes up in flames. I don't need a candle. I just walk outside. But, that's a good idea, Carrie. I think I'm going to sell some of those French candles on eBay for the
There you go.
It's perfect for the holidays, for those people that you don't know what they like and you don't super care.
Right.
You get them something. Yeah.
Oh, John, you sold video games on eBay. Right. It's exploding. He said the prices the past 3 months are higher than ever.
Makes sense, because you can't go anywhere.
Right.
And everybody's kind of bored. And what's really been going on in the video game industry, just to tie that to this for a second, is that everybody's slowed down, everybody being working from home. And there's this new kind of trend in video gaming saying, don't work your engineers to death, maybe actually, allow the release date to slip a little bit, which has accidentally, somewhat unintentionally, put a huge drought in new video game releases. And so there's just all kinds of people looking back to what kind of classics they can play. So suddenly those games,
Chris, there's going to be a new Microsoft
Indeed.
Flight Simulator, and
That's what
they
I
say
heard.
it's going to integrate with Bing Maps, so you can fly over your house. And I like to have little things to.
I like
help my talk.
your plane.
I like that you
Thank you.
illustrate for us in case we've forgotten in the long months since the
I know,
pandemic
I
began
want to be.
what
But if
planes
you
do.
But when
You're
we're going
so
to be
right.
able to start traveling again, it's just really going to suck because the nice lady isn't going to say, "Would you like a drink?" She's going to say, "Sit in your chair and be sure your mask is on." And there's going to be somebody sitting next to you.
I'm just hoping our pilot doesn't use Bing Maps. That's all I'm stuck on.
But anyway, the new Microsoft simulator is going to be out by the end of the year, and it's going to be available. And this is not a press release thing. I've actually seen it. And it's amazing. You can actually look down from the plane and fly over your neighborhood and see your house. It's so cool. And that'll be available for the PC. So at least some people are smart enough. Well, look who's buying TikTok too, right? So
what do you think about that one? Not that I really ever want to cover anything like this on any show ever, but
But
you
at
said
least
it.
one
this is
person
what
in
I
the
thought.
audience is very interested in the answer
Oh, well,
because
you
she
see,
TikToks all the time.
well, the thing is, what we're not accepting in this world is there's a whole bunch of crap we get from China. I mean, let's just face it. I'm a fan of Huawei, and I have done work with them, but the technology I've gotten from them has been groundbreaking. It's stuff that then comes later to other phones because I test Samsungs too, and I'll have the Samsung phone and get the update on one phone, and then 6 months later I get the same feature on the Samsung phone. But Apple phones are made in China, and no doubt there's Chinese technology in there. Every camera that you've got for security is made in China. Microphones are made in China, and TikTok, for God's sake, is a Beijing company. You can't get any more Chinese than being from Beijing. Either we have to say we're going to cut ourselves off from tech in the rest of the world, or we're going to figure out a way to do this. See, Canada can still TikTok just because we're not even going to say how they're so lucky.
You're the queen of the world, Carol.
We get to see demos of Canadian TikToks. It's like a whole different thing.
Yeah,
right.
It's like American TikToks, but everything on the left side.
But if Microsoft
looks different,
like that. But if Microsoft still buys it, that's great. Oh wait, explain why the UK is waiting. That's to rid of Huawei. This is an interesting thing. The founder of Huawei, nice man. If any of us remember, and Chris, you're old enough to remember this. Remember, there used to be a guy who built computers down the street. Sure. And you could buy custom computers from him and you'd be supporting his family and him. Well, the guy who founded this mega company, Huawei, he and his buddies sat in his apartment making networking equipment. They'd buy the parts from other people, they'd put it together, and they'd sell it. So, long story. We have to decide. He offered to sell the code, to share the 5G that they have already done. They've already accomplished it. They have Africa covered with 5G, all these places, but not the US. And we're sitting here paddling, well, we're going to develop our own 5G. But why should we start from scratch? He offered to sell it. He offered to partner. We have to decide whether we are going to be a technological world of our own, which in that case, we need to consider what we're doing with Apple and what we're doing with everybody else who's manufacturing in China and sending technology here. And buying TikTok is an excellent move because then we do have more control. And those people who don't understand in our government anything about technology will be able to understand it just a little better.
By the way, it's been really fun watching people in UK burn down what they think are 5G towers and wiping out 2 and 4G at every turn. Bless their little souls. You talk about the fact of, the difference between technologists and people who are kind of tech enthusiasts. It's a cell tower. It must be 5G. Is wiping out essential services all over the UK. It's been pretty entertaining. But I can't really throw stones at people dealing with misinformation because we have a president that asked if we could inject light into our bodies. So I'm not going to be able to throw any stones. I bet Dr. Hyde had a chance to look over that paper. Sasha
we could do a whole show on
You could do it on Marsha's show because
that's right.
That's what she covers.
Only my co-host doesn't like to talk about it.
Oh, well, I can understand, I guess. Marsha, the way
Co-host
this
doesn't
does
get a
things-
lot of say, Marsha, in my experience.
No,
But you see, I can laugh at my co-host when I let him
I
run
can
off
laugh
with
near
something.
mine. So, Marsha, one question I do have, though, and going back to things like eBay, by the way, I had said to a friend of mine who is known for her gardening prowess, I said, boy, we're going to go back to victory gardens like we had in World War II because all the good food was
Big
being
time.
sent to the troops. And all of a sudden we're going to need to make some, food on our lawns instead of just pretty flowers. I think the same is true with things like eBay. 40 million people out of work. I have this feeling that maybe a few more people are going to have to dip in. I've been seeing people, how do I want to say this? I've been seeing people that I couldn't imagine being a guy talking about their eBay. I've seen a lot of them suddenly listing eBay in their Twitter stream, as well as their like business projects. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of it. What do you think?
Well, I definitely do think, and even you talked victory gardens, and that's a whole other show. Like we've got a garden out back. My husband's growing lettuce and all kinds of things that have bugs on them that I don't want to get near, but he's the brave one and he's the farmer. But you can even, sell baby plants. You can find baby plants on Amazon. And as a third-party seller, if you wanted to do cuttings of rare plants, you could be selling them. It's so easy but the problem is you have to make the effort. And that's the thing, just like Chris, you doing this show with Carrie, you had to make the effort. You had to commit. You had to say, what am I going to do every day? You had to make an outline for yourself. You had to set goals. And if you don't set goals, nothing is going to happen. So that's e-commerce in a nutshell. And that's life, really. And the pandemic. Don't just sit around and watch TV all day. Set a goal, even if it's a simple goal. Going to the 7-Eleven for ice cream. Do that.
That's
It's
a good goal.
I like
Although,
it.
Not if you ask Embriette.
well, and I'm going to ask her, is ice cream
Well,
off
can we
the
go?
table? Can we get ice cream, Mom?
Are we allowed?
Everything in moderation.
Thank you.
Including
Thank
moderation.
you.
It's really a lifestyle. It's different if you have ice cream every once in a while, but your diet mainly focuses on whole foods and vegetables and fruits. It's a completely another thing when you're sitting on the couch and all you eat is ice cream and Twinkies and
Yeah, I agree.
very
Twinkies.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so lazy. I'm not a good cook. I get all my meals from Freshly, which has organic, fresh food that's already cooked, comes once a week to the house. It's like little TV dinners every week, and they're organic and wonderful.
Probably the
freshly
best
sourced.
advice I've ever been given for what to eat is, could you have picked it or killed it in the last half hour? And if the answer is no, don't eat it.
Right.
So does that mean like you shouldn't be eating things that come from far away or something? Like, because that says local to me, but I don't know if local actually matters so much.
Well, that's actually a whole nother argument, and I do favor local versus not for a number of reasons. I mean, you could get into the whole environmental argument there as well. But it's like, are you going to eat the salad that's made with fresh arugula and cucumbers that you cut up, or are you going to eat those I don't remember what they're called. They're like veggie sticks or something. It's essentially potato chips
Oh,
that
yeah.
masquerade as
Right.
vegetables, and they're supposed to be healthier. Like I can't go out and pick a veggie chip from my garden.
Well, like I said, we grow vegetables out back, and we eat local honey, which I always wanted to ask
for
you,
the
is this
allergy.
a myth? Is this a myth? Chris, ask the question because you know what I'm asking.
Yeah. So they say that if you're, deal with plant allergies and that sort of a thing and pollen allergies, that if you eat local honey that, came out of a bee's butt, does that make you less allergic?
I don't know. I honestly don't know that. That's a really
Son
Back
of
to
a-
school, Embriette.
that's
Forget
an
it.
intriguing question. I might have to get my second PhD in that one and be
Okay, will you DM me? Because I really want to
In like 4 years, Marsha. Set your alarm.
yeah.
No, because I think, and impossible meat, well, as much as I'd love to be a vegetarian, I don't see anything really all natural in that impossible meat or anything that I want to put into my body.
Yeah, it's a good point. And one of the things that is kind of like the hidden dirty secret about it is that in order to get vegetable or lab protein, like lab made proteins, to have the texture and like mouthfeel that we're used to and we all love, there's a lot of preservatives and sodium and things that go in there. And so you're almost like, just for all the good that it does, you're kind of eliminating it with all of the bad crap that you put in there. So
Thank you.
You know,
You validated, Marsha. I'm just going to eat a whole thing of Ben and Jerry's by myself over the course of one weekend.
You know, I
every
haven't eaten
weekend,
enough
Embriette.
ice cream in years that I
Ridiculous.
just haven't done it. I've gotten so used to yogurt and whatever else it is. I do eat frozen Halo Top though.
I've had that a couple of times. You can always make your own, because then you also know what's gone into it, and you
Yeah,
don't
but
have
then I know how many calories are in it.
yeah, and there's no artificial colorings, or unless you add food coloring. Well, if that's your gig, go ahead. But
Right.
I take issue with food ingredient labels where there's like 20 ingredients for bread. I made bread the other day, and there were 3 ingredients: water, flour, and oil. Like, you don't need 20 ingredients to make bread. And I've talked to several people who have lived in different areas of the world, where they're either from a different area of the world or spent some time living there, and different food allergies and things that they have here in the States just don't exist in those areas of the world. And I think it should give us pause and think about how we're producing our foods, not just the plant-based foods, but even the animal-based foods, how the animal lives, even how it's killed, all affects the quality of the meat. I actually just learned the other day that grass-fed beef has more anti-inflammatory omega-3s in it than regular beef that was, grain-fed and raised in who knows what kind of conditions. So
This is brilliant. And I wanted to ask you, because I believe in grain-fed beef. I've also liked to eat kosher beef, because there's a religious thing in that. You want to explain more about that, because the animals aren't afraid or something. They're treated differently.
It's a very humane way of slaughtering the animals, the kosher method. But one of the most intriguing scientific studies I read, and now I can't remember which one it is, but I'll have to look it up, was looking at the stress hormones and other hormones that are released at the moment of death with different methods of killing animals, and how that affects the meat and what you subsequently intake. And it really is critical. It can play a big role in the ability to get nutrients from the meat, but also you're eating those stress hormones.
So you got to sneak up behind them.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
They do have a way of doing it. I don't want to know the details, but that's why I do eat kosher meat or grain-fed when I can.
Yeah, it's a very humane way of doing it. And I guess when I said grain-fed, I was remiss. I kind of generalized that a little bit. Not all grain-fed cattle is bad. It's more, what I meant was the big agricultural cattle companies only feed grain. It's because they pack the cows in these barns, and that's really the issue. It's not the fact that they're eating grain. It's just
the
that
humanity.
They can't live as cows.
Right.
They can't.
The cow-manity is not maintained. Well, that's the book I popped up on screen is pal Rob Wolf's book, and it's called Sacred Cow. Diana Rogers and Rob Wolf. It's the case for better meat, and it's also why well-raised meat is good for you and good for the planet.
Yeah. Good.
And it's definitely a book worth checking out, just insofar as, there's a lot of times that, things like Impossible Meat came along. By the way, I had my first ever Impossible Burger, and I was like, this is amazing. This tastes like, the heme bee thing, where it feels like it's bloody like a cow, and all that sort of thing.
It's got all those chemicals to make you taste it.
Exactly. And you suddenly think afterwards, wait a minute.
Like those tasty
I've been
chemicals.
taken.
This tastes too good to be good. So.
Right.
Yeah.
It does taste different too. Like, you can totally tell the difference between meat that has been humanely treated versus not.
Well, thank you so much. Really.
yay.
There you go.
Hi there.
That's a humanely treated
Look at
canine.
that. Puppy. But thank you for the tip on the kosher meat, because I wanted to be sure that I was doing, because I'm paying extra.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. And I would say it's worth it. But as with anything, like paying extra for organic is worth it too, for sure.
Oh,
What's beet blood? What's John talking about? Beet blood.
He's talking about how they make the vegetable-based protein look like it's bleeding when you eat it.
Yeah, so when you cut into an Impossible Burger, it looks like a little bit of blood on the plate, which your mind wants to fill those details in, and so it's like, this must be delicious, because That's how we were raised.
I feel like we get a lot of people turning up in the hopes of an animal sighting on the show between between the one that between the guests and
the so one question I have that sort of ties everybody together, and we're heading towards, we have like 10 minutes left of the show. Things have changed since the apocalypse, or the pre-apocalypse. I like John's word, pre-apocalypse. Things have changed. And insofar as things have changed, we reevaluate a lot. We reevaluate what we choose to do with our time, what we choose to eat, how we want to conduct ourselves, what matters. I really feel like a lot of us, and this plays to Marsha, like with regards to sell your dumb things, but also Embriette with, where you want to focus your time. Yeah. What's changed for both of you, since being locked away?
Well, for me, it was really hard in the beginning. I mean, really hard, because I was used to traveling all the time and going places and doing things. The first couple of months, I would wake up with a start. Aren't I supposed to be on a plane? And then I'd have to calm down. So seriously, I had to get through that mental set that I was at home. And then I was feeling useless because not a lot was happening. A lot of my work had to do with traveling. And I wasn't traveling. So I figured, how do I do my book? Unless I'm writing a book, I have no work to do. So I had to reconfigure my feelings and how I felt about my own work and my own self-worth.
Sure.
And it was a major process. I'm coming through the other side now, but it was a process.
Dr. Hyde.
In the beginning, I kind of counted myself fortunate because life in general didn't change a whole lot for me. I work from home as it is anyway. And there weren't the restrictions in the sense, like I could still walk my dogs every day outside and do things like this. And I'm highly introverted. It may come as a shock, but I'm not an extroverted personality. I tire really quickly in social situations. But the thing that was the hardest for me that really just kind of took me off guard was not being able to work out at my gym with everyone else, just having that camaraderie.
That's a social thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I really learned the value of social situations. And so when that happened, I kind of started getting very frustrated and very upset and following the same dialogue of everyone else, like go back to normal, etc. And I had to go through this exercise that was probably spiritual just as much as physical and everything else, of letting go of the thing. Like, this situation is out of our control. It is what it is. And there's nothing we can do to go back to the way it was. So we can choose to either go on pause indefinitely, or we can choose to adapt to it and change. And so, one of my friends said this. He's like, I've noticed the people who kind of went on pause and are just waiting for it to go away so they can go back to normal, they're not adjusting well. Whereas the people who have learned to take the situation and adapt to it, those are the people that are doing well. And so I've been working very hard to be in that second group rather than the first group.
Well, that's amazing. You really said it just perfectly, because you just can't sit around in life and wait for something to happen.
Yeah.
In any form.
Yeah. I like how Deb says the hard part about changing behavior and thought is letting go.
Yeah, that's true.
Good thing we had Anna from Frozen on earlier in the week, or the week before. So.
We did. We had the first Black woman to play Princess Anna on Broadway on the show.
Fabulous.
That's so cool. Did she sing for you?
No.
No, my gosh, you never let theater people sing on your dumb show. They'll never stop. It's terrible.
Really?
For me, it was more like,
for it.
I didn't want to be like, entertain us, like,
Well, Carrie, I see you have a guitar back there. Why don't you strum a little tune and start singing?
Yeah, let me do that.
Since not doing the gym as much, Carrie. Since not doing the gym as much, Carrie has been doing a lot more guitar lessons. So
I have. I've doubled up on guitar lessons because I miss the gym too. Which I am not a person that was like, no days off, go to the gym. Blah blah. I was like, roll into the gym for like 30 solid minutes and whatever, and do my thing. And it got awkward for a while. I thought about changing gyms because there were people that'd be like, oh hey, like one woman would always be like, I love you. You look so good. And like, it was so nice. But at the same time, I'm from Boston, and I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know about talking to her.
If you went to the gym in California, truth, right, Embriette? It's a whole different planet out here in California.
And actually, my husband and I built a gym in our garage, and that's been a really cool exercise because that's like how CrossFit started. Was in a garage, and now all these CrossFit athletes have been forced to return to the roots, and I love it. It's so cool. But I do
Return to the garage. Or you're a CrossFit trainer. You level, is it level 1?
a level 1, yeah.
Level 1.
Yeah, well, that means that you could basically
Wow.
own the business at this point. You know,
Right.
since
If I have the
Glassman
money to
gave
buy
it all
it.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about a crazy branding experience that's been.
You can
I
get
have a
stuff on
friend who
eBay.
owns-
For
I have
sure.
a friend who owns a CrossFit up this way, and this is very similar to what happened with Bikram Yoga. Bikram Gandhi had his issues, and basically, if you were a Bikram Yoga gym owner or whatever, yoga studio owner, you had to decide: am I keeping that name on my wall because it means something now? So every box, every CrossFit gym had to decide what they were going to do with that, and it's definitely a deal. All right, so we're at the end of the show. So one of the things we ask is a question that relates to the topic of the show, the theme of the show, the backpack, and basically what goes in your backpack. Backpacks are portable. We're sort of working in this world where it's very everything's moving. We're building on sand. So 5 things that I've added to the backpack that'll be in my upcoming book by the same name: story, collaboration, autonomy, Manchu, which means one, family, and execution. Marsha and Embriette, what is one thing that we can add to the backpack so that people can survive the next 5 years?
Persistence.
I like it.
I
I'll
like
take persistence.
persistence. Flexibility.
Ooh, the two of those together are great.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll take
If you
them. I'll take
persistently
persistence.
work out, you gain flexibility.
That's for sure.
I like it.
There you go. Well, it seems
Okay,
like we hit
now
all
do
those.
we all go in our favorite yoga pose to end the show?
Oh, it's funny you should ask that. There's kind of a tradition around here about